We often talk about the social contract as a high-minded political theory, a document we never signed but are expected to follow. But when we look closer, the most visceral part of that contract isn't about voting or free speech. It's about the wallet. Think about your own life. When you look at your paycheck, do you see a reward for your personal grit or a dividend of a system that allowed you to work in the first place?
This is the economic contract. It is the unspoken agreement regarding what we owe the collective in exchange for the right to participate in the market. It is the tension between the I and the we. It asks, is a society a team working toward a common goal or a platform where individuals compete?
The foundation is simple: property. From John Locke to the present, the contract began with the idea that your labor is yours. When you mix your effort with the world, when you build a business or master a craft, that value is an extension of your person. The state's role isn't to be a manager, it's to be a referee.
But even the ancients knew it wasn't that simple. Aristotle spoke of proportional justice. He argued that rewards should be distributed based on contribution to the polis. If you contribute more to the city's excellence, you receive more. The question Forge raises is where that contribution ends and private gain begins. If the city provides the roads your trucks drive on, does the city own a piece of the profit?
We have to move past the 17th century view of the lone pioneer. In a modern, complex economy, no one, absolutely no one, succeeds alone. We are part of what John Rawls called a cooperative venture for mutual advantage. The economic contract evolved because we realized that fairness isn't just about the absence of theft, it's about the presence of opportunity.
Dr. Stenner is pointing to a shift that happened during the Industrial Revolution. When the contract moved from small villages to massive factories, the individual became vulnerable to forces they couldn't control: market crashes, automation, illness. The contract was renegotiated to include a safety net. But at what cost to the individual's autonomy?
The cost is the erosion of the just title. If you tell a man that his earnings are merely a communal pool to be drained whenever the group decides, you haven't created a contract. You've created a tax farm. Forced redistribution, even for noble ends, violates the fundamental promise that your effort belongs to you.
But John, if the effort of the few creates a permanent underclass that cannot afford to eat, the contract has already failed. A contract that only protects the winners isn't a contract. It's a hierarchy. True distributive justice ensures that the rules benefit everyone, especially those who start the race with the heaviest weights.
Here is where the gears grind. On one side, we have commutative justice, the idea that if the transaction was voluntary, the outcome is just. If you agree to work for $10 and I pay you $10, the contract is fulfilled. On the other side, we have distributive justice, the idea that the overall pattern of wealth matters. If the system results in 1% holding 90% of the resources, the voluntary nature of the individual transactions is irrelevant, because the system itself has become coercive.
Consider the Great Compression after World War II. In the United States and Europe, the economic contract was rewritten. Taxes on the highest earners were, by modern standards, staggering.
And the result? The largest middle-class expansion in human history. We traded individual peak wealth for collective stability and shared prosperity.
But we also built a bureaucracy that eventually stagnated. By the 1970s, the contract had become so heavy with regulation and cost that it began to suffocate the very innovation that funded it. History shows that the contract must breathe. When it becomes too rigid in the name of equality, it loses the incentive that drives progress.
To understand this, imagine the orchard. One person spends years tilling the soil and planting the trees. They claim the fruit is theirs. But the village built the wall that keeps the wolves out. The village dug the well that watered the trees during the drought. If the farmer takes all the fruit, the village starves and the wall falls. Then the wolves take everything. But if the village takes all the fruit to be fair, the farmer stops planting. The trade-off is eternal. You can have absolute individual liberty, or you can have absolute social cohesion. You cannot have both at their maximum. And then, beneath the noise of political slogans, there is a shared concern: stability. The conservative fears that destroying incentives will lead to a collapse of the system. The progressive fears that ignoring inequality will lead to a collapse of the system.
They are both right. They aren't arguing over whether a contract exists, but over the insurance premium. How much liberty are we willing to pay to insure against instability? We find common ground when we admit that a market needs a community to protect it, and a community needs a market to feed it. The economic social contract is never finished. It is a living negotiation. Every time we debate a tax code, a minimum wage, or a corporate subsidy, we are picking up the pen to adjust the terms. It is a difficult, often frustrating conversation, but it is the only one that keeps the orchard standing. Next time you look at the world around you, ask yourself, what part of your success do you owe to your hands, and what part do you owe to the wall? I'm Steve Johnson. This is the Vantage Point. Support our channel and subscribe.